Hi, I'm Susan Palma. I am co-owner of Precision Shapes. I have been here approximately 40 years. I have done pretty much every facet of um, the administration of this building. They never really let me touch the parts because I tend to break things, but I do understand the workings of the company from the inside and out. Jesse?
Cool. Well, I'm Susan's son. So my mom is second generation. We'll get into that a little later. Uh, I'm third generation shop employment. I was not very involved with the shop growing up. My first time touching a Bridgeport wasn't even until college, and it wasn't even here at the shop. So suffice it to say that it was not my intention growing up to be part of the shop, and not really an opportunity had come up yet. So I studied mechanical engineering in college. Co-opted into my first job in a structures engineering position at NASA. Worked out at Lawrence Livermore Lab for a while, and then jumped to the private sector with a small Silicon Valley laser manufacturer. I discovered I loved working in manufacturing, and a few years later, I took the opportunity to join Precision Shapes as it was growing. I've been here close to 6 years now, and well, I started as a quality engineer, and then quickly stepped into the role of quality manager and had to learn that pretty quick. And then moved to my current position of business manager and Kaizen program manager and compliance and all the small hats that we tend to wear in small businesses.
My name is John Prizer. I've been with the company for almost 8 months, so kind of the new one here. Um, I grew up in manufacturing industry. My dad had a shop growing up. After leaving home, I worked for large aerospace companies. I worked for companies as small as 5 people. So I've had a good mix of large corporate um, aerospace companies with a lot of good corporate training, which I benefited from. I've been with smaller companies and helped them grow through um, different stages of their life cycle. And so this is my latest venture is working here with Precision Shapes, and hopefully it'll be for a long time.
Well, this is an 81-year-old company. It's not a new startup, but when I've been here 40 of those years, it is like an ever evolving startup. I mean, we still face a lot of the same pressures and the same things that startups do, and a little bit of baggage that we carried along the way. It actually started in the 1930s in what was to become East Germany. They emigrated over in the 30s into the New York City area and then later relocated outside of New York and Suffern, New York. My father, and later to become his business partner, started in the 50s as bench hands, sweeping floor. Ronnie started in the office and Dad started in the shop. They worked there through the 50s and the early 70s they bought the company from old lady Fajna, was the widow of the man that brought it over. That's all I knew him was old man Fajna, old lady Fajna, and I barely remember them. So um, it was in the New York area. Late in the 70s, they proceeded to transition from New York to Florida, much more favorable type of environment down here. This was the Space Center area. It was a very, very depressed. Land was cheap, no state taxes. So it was a 10-year transition of bringing that business out of New York to Florida. I started in the office in the 70s. And Jesse says he was never a part of this business growing up because I was reluctantly allowed to work in the office and don't say anything, don't do anything, and I was always told for the first 20 years I was here, don't get comfortable. It's not a family business. Well, that changed radically in the late 90s and early 2000, which led to my sister coming down from New York and us buying it from my father. So it became a family business. He was ready to retire out, and business wasn't doing too well in the late 90s, early 2000s. So we took it over and have been on a growth path since. Um, that was in 2001, and we are currently 64-ish employees, depending on which time of day it is. We are growing and adding people, and we are recovering to pre-COVID revenues, about 10 million, and we are growing at a very fast pace right now. We've had to evolve and transition always through the 40 years I've been here, and we have bringing John on and having new generation and bringing in the new hires that we have. We are rapidly moving forward to meet the needs of our industry. So, you guys want to talk about what we specialize in?
Good.
Yeah. So okay. Probably the easiest way to explain that is by starting with our layout. We have two large buildings. In the front building, we have what we call long line machining. It's a horizontal milling technique where we take up to 26-foot bars, run them through horizontal cutters. We run them through using a power-driven chain bed. We pull the material through the cutters, and this process, though it's a process from the 30s or earlier, and it's dirty, it takes a certain amount of training and skill. There's a lot of manual adjustments and manual supervision required for it. However, we can hold great tolerances and produce nice long machined bar products, competing with extrusions and competing very well with CNC machine parts for long parts like that. So that's housed in our front building. That's our founding technology, and it still competes today. Now, building two is where all the fun's been happening over the past 20 years or so. Since we introduced our first CNC in the 90s, well, it was slow growth at first into CNC technology, and Mom alluded to that by telling how our business in the late 90s was suffering a bit. I think one of the major factors for that was not having dove into the new CNC technology sooner and deeper. But Precision Shape started making up for that in the 2000s, brought in a lot of vertical mills, and developed further into our current state from there. And that would be housed in building two. We have, well over a dozen mills. We have several horizontal machining centers now. We have a whole bevy of secondary processes which are developing more and more every year as our customers ask for more. And yeah, it's a nice dichotomy walking through our shop. You see the old and the new. You see what founded us and buoys us, and then you see what's bringing us into the future.
It was a slow roll, though. It was a slow roll because it really was a difficult position to be in, and we were behind the eight ball as far as technology and growth. And it wasn't until my sister and I took over, and we still do. Our main mission is to reinvest every year to bring us up to par and to get us to where we need to be to survive now and in the future in this industry. So.
So now, John, you're bringing us additional perspectives and plans going into new capabilities moving forward. Because I'm sure, as you know, Paul, there's a whole menu of options for what capabilities a machine shop like ours could bring on.
Yeah.
So where does one start?
We go into a little bit. So, I mean, some of the things that we are looking at are, bringing in different types of automation. unmanned machining. We are have one active collaborative robot that we're using. We have gotten very ingenious on how we utilize our verticals and horizontal mills through quick change, fixturing and tooling. And that's really just the beginning. We've got full-time applications employees. We have a very strong programming team. That is our focus on going forward on really, building up the upfront end of the business and driving the technology and the automation and making life easier down the road for the operators instead of challenging them with figuring more out on the floor.
Yes.
So, so right, so we've got a steady stream of small run jobs, anywhere from 1 to 10 parts. We've got a fairly good mix of that 100-piece lot. And then the baseline of the businesses are, a really strong amount of long-term agreements that we have. So we've got a fair amount of our shop that runs full day shift. Some machines are running second shift, and that really is the foundation of what keeps the company going.
We were dabbling at that point. We were, we were high of 65 employees doing less than half of our revenue now at that point. And we quickly became half the number of people. We downsized quite rather quickly. We in the 1990s we got our first Laguna-matic. I looked it up with a Dynapath 20, you know. And now it's this like really odd shaped thing out in our maintenance area, it was our first CNC. We got a couple of those, and it was a slow launch because of the economy at that time. We were pretty much a cash basis. We didn't have big customers that invested in us, so we just did what we could when we could. In the early 2000s, when we took over, we decided to go full hog into aerospace aviation and go for our certification AS 9100. I was then quality manager. Back when it was easy, and spent 8 years bringing in AS 9100. And, we embraced it. We used it to change our culture here, to start our documentation and turn everything around. And we got our industry cert in 2006, our AS 9100. And then the momentum of the assets. We also started winning our first LTAs, our production parts. So every year we bought 1 or 2 new CNCs, verticals at first, and we got into the horizontals and really lathes. How we got our first lathe, what, 6, 7 years ago? Never had any lathes. It was crazy. Um, so now we're up to how many? 7, 8.
Yeah.
John brought 2 in the last 8 months. That is a much in demand department. So as the business pushed us, the economy improved, and we were unabashedly reinvesting to keep moving and keep moving forward. Jesse brought in CMM in the we got 3 now in the quality department. So we automated when we could. As far as John is our supercharger, I believe, going forward and pushing us with his knowledge, his expertise. Also, he's brought in a whole level of people to help us internally to move forward. So, what was your question? Well, being in the industry so long, our success is, working with our customers and helping them as they grow and getting on board. I just basically said, yeah, sure, we'll be your beta site for EDI. Yeah, we will, try forecast and release. Yeah, we'll do it. And just kind of being present in front of them. Our first was back then it was Roar Industries, and we were on about 5 different programs then. The V2500 being their big production one, and as the V2500 was coming up and petering out, they were bringing up the Airbus A320 Neo. So we were, ramping down on one and ramping up on the other, and I don't know how to use the phones.
Cut that out of the video.
Well, as we were ramping down, it's 2012, 13, 15. As they were ramping down on the V2500, they were also ramping up and quoting the Neo. So we were they didn't really have a formal NPI program, but we're kind of their developmental. So we onesies and twosies a lot of theirs, and then just being a big old pain in the butt and being present in front of their face, we got the opportunity to bid the production work. And as they were doing that, this is scarier than heck. They were being bought out by Goodrich and Collins, UTC, and then Collins, and now they're Raytheon. So we were, doing the jump of supply chain to supply chain, new leadership to new leadership. And I think the resounding support we gave them from every facet, from the engineering, our quality, our on-time delivery, kept us in the game. And at one point, I think when UTC took over, their leadership came in and they said, you are on our cut list. We're merging supply chains. You are automatically the size and style shop that we would never carry forward. And there were people out there that said, oh, you can't cut them. So they came out to find out why. So we kind of nipped the bud at there. But then the result of that and showing them of what we had been doing in quality and why we had such a great reputation and experience with them, they kept us on, and we won a sizable LTA for I think we're still on 5 different programs with them. So as they grew, we grew, and as they went through their issues, we went through their issues with them, and we helped them as much as possible. And that was the one customer. And about that time, a lot of our other customers, GE, Honeywell, Aerospace, they were all coming up with LTAs. We were well versed with LTAs. We're like, yeah, sure, we'll do whatever you want. And you just learn it that way. So being ahead of the curve with along with our customers in that respect. So and it has kept us.
How many buyers have you trained just for that one customer over the years?
They traditionally gave precision shapes to their new buyers because I would tell them what we see and how to read their system. And it's like, no, you don't want that one. Oh, you need to quote this too because they share material or they're sister parts, that sort of thing. So yeah, it is, no matter how big a company you are or they are above or below you, it is person to person. And that is key, absolute key going forward. They did not have so much NPI as a centralized purchasing, and then they decentralized it, then they centralized it, then it's just keeping track of that, before as they merged and changed and stuff. I mean, honestly, it's just being out there. I remember, can we tell war stories here? Well, as they were being purchased, I forget who was purchasing. I guess UTC. They were merging UTC. The leadership, who I knew as buyers, like 30 years ago, were now leaders. They gave us an award, like a Supplier of the Year award, 2011. That was. So I think it was somewhere in our marketing. Anyway, so we went out there for the big to do, and the thank you type of thing, and the cocktail party after. I grabbed, some of the leaders that I knew and grabbed them by the arm and says, "What does a girl have to do around here to get a bid on a new part and a new program?" Because I hear nothing out of anything. We're never late. You're never worried about us. We just were way on the other side of the country. So by the next morning, we got into the GTF and the C series, and we started picking up parts there, and that's how we hopscotched to the Neo program because they were coming. So it's person to person. Yeah, exactly. Jesse has much more experience with new customers. He's been working in sales for a couple of years now and getting on the lists and getting face to face and getting into a whole. I mean, we've been outside the Space Center for 40 years now. Heck, I haven't gotten anything in all these years. So really, it's not easy. I mean, but we've got a couple leads from the diligent work that you've been doing, right?
What I've learned in about 2 years now of being in sales and marketing in aerospace on the machine shop side, timelines are long, especially for the larger the customer, larger the contract we want, the longer we're working to try to gain entry to even bid on that. As an example, during one of the very first prospects I targeted was Boeing when I started working sales, and this was right at the start of COVID. I changed my positions. Uh, I changed positions as part of our strategic plan of restructuring right at the time of COVID, when the bottom kind of fell out of a lot of aviation work, especially. We had to unfortunately downsize to adjust for that. And I changed roles immediately from a project manager and quality supporting to sales, full-time sales, try to replace that. So I very quickly ramped up on, what worked and what doesn't in aerospace. And one of the very first things I did was order those aerospace companies in order of size, and then start at the top and find out how to get on their supplier roll. First of all, just getting on their lists. That was one of the biggest things. Making sure that we qualified for what they needed, reading their supplier expectations pages, and then making sure that we're on their rolls so that when that RFP pops up, even if it's only once a year, that our name is in the running to at least get sent. Now, it took a year and a half, but we did get sent a Boeing RFP. So there's a great example. A year and a half later, boom, just we get an email saying, "Hey, we'd like you to participate in this RFP." So we'll see how that turns out. Still, no promises there, but it's the first foot in the door. And what I learned from the story that Mom just shared about, you know, working with a single customer over many decades through many changes, all leading up to finally getting entrance into one of their newer, larger programs and getting a good chunk of a contract there. I mean, how many years would you say it took leading up to that, providing, service to the various names of our
20,
customer?
yeah, 20, and then, keeping track. In fact, recently we've been getting a lot of NPI bids out of Raytheon because our favorite buyer jumped from Neo to NPI. He brought us with him. So we're one of three buyers when they get in trouble. Three suppliers, when they get in trouble, they come to us. Can you do this? Can you do this? And that's part of our strategy, is being the one that bails them out. So it keeps on the supply chain. And at this point, with the way global market is, it's important to just still be on their supply chain. That
I
way.
mean, it flows through the same sources, but we clearly identify which work is going to repeat versus which work is just a quick turn job. And so, although they go through the same channels, we do have two different paths in our processes to handle it.
I've covered quite a bit of it. I could repeat myself, but just hanging on, hanging on and remaining on their supply chain, making sure that we support them in their needs, and it might be helping them bring up their new quality system or their new forecast and release system, and strategically growing with them and supporting them. Um,
I'll jump in.
yeah,
Um,
good.
exactly. It can be tempting being in a machine shop to look at a PO from a customer or a customer's need and think, oh, they just need us to cut a piece of metal, put it in a box, and ship it to them. That's what they need. They need that piece of metal there. That's to me, that's a prehistoric view of machine shops at this point now. We know it's more. It's the inspection, it's the full traceability materials driving down into specification requirements, and even just less specified tough end user requirements that, we're talking with our customer about their customer's expectation and trying to find the right balance to get product to where they need it. We take the holistic view and then we chop it up into pieces and then work on each piece to make it as efficient and productive as possible. So
I used to joke with our customers, their quality, we'd always get audited quality for the AS9100, and they still come out. And I would say, look, I have to know your 400-page quality manual by heart. Okay, you only have to know your own. I have to know yours and every customer's. We have to be able to incorporate all of our customers' requirements. Hopefully, over time, it'll be a level playing field. They all want the same stuff, but there's little nuances, and that's real difficult to convey, to track, and to communicate internally, which is, why we're, focusing on our systems and processes right now. We can buy all the horizontals you want, but we need to be able to have a steady flow of people and programming and scheduling through and including quality. We invested heavily in our quality department over the last 10 years, very heavily, and that was popular. But our customers required it, therefore we did.
that's one thing that's might set us aside from a lot of other shops. Almost every one of our contracts requires 100% inspection, which means every single piece, every single dimension, and then further certifying all the non-dimensional aspects of that product too. So a lot of the keys to our efficiency and competitiveness lies in not just how well we manufacture, but how efficiently we inspect, and then ensuring, always driving to 100% quality where we can, because that really is our industry expectation. So it's a difficult balance, but over many years, we keep improving at it.
Well, the rule of thumb by our customers when they ask us is they don't want any one customer to be more than 40% of your total revenue. And which is kind of hard because a lot of our old customers have been bought up. They're all GEs. We got like 6 or 7 GEs that were all separate customers at one point. Same thing with Raytheon. It's like, all right, guys, how do we handle this? So then we look at industry and we look at the who we're serving. Is it the government? Is it military? Is it space? Is it commercial aviation type of thing? So we try to break it up there. We just got some NPI Gulfstream. We're like, yay, Gulfstream. It's like a new name, Northrop Grumman, things like that. So we are about 60% LTA, long-term agreement over various customers. Still very heavy. I don't know. We always said aerospace. Now they say aviation, space.
So
But
we serve a bevy of industries, aviation, defense. More and more, we're seeing some space, both commercial space and government space parts.
mhm.
finally, being on the Space Coast might actually result in some space-related work.
Yeah.
We also serve some companies, as well as firearms manufacturer. We do have our FFL. That was one of the new licenses that we saw a market opportunity for over the past few years. So also we serve infrastructure and then a whole bunch of commercial manufacturers for equipment as esoteric as shrimp processing equipment, which I really like that one.
And looking forward, we're looking for military, perhaps direct government work, although we have been a direct supplier to the government in the past. We're generally second tier, but we still can handle that. So with the ever-changing global scene, we might be looking more towards direct military work, and we're already in with Lockheed and Harris and some companies like that. So
Going into a new industry always requires us looking at our certifications, looking at the expectations in that industry for ways to conduct business. Like, for instance, if we're going to do direct government work, there's at least a half dozen initial accounts we need to sign up for, gain access to, update every year, and a learning curve there too. So we're we can't do them all at once, so we have to be strategic in what industries we're looking at next and what customers within there. So a few different factors.
CMMC, cybersecurity. Oh my, yeah, that's been huge over the last few years, and we take it seriously. We don't ignore it too long. Yeah. Which culture do you want? Which year? you know? Well, John, I'd like you to talk to that. You're the
Well,
newest, and he's our changing.
so I'm the new person, but what I've heard a lot since I've started is they really like this family environment. Yeah, there's a lot of care and concern about people here. And I think you probably saw that during a visit. It's very personalized. The ownership and management really not just show it; they really do care about the people here. Part of the culture is that I see in from being with small companies and watching companies grow. Some of that culture does require a little bit of changing. You start building a little bit more structure. With structure, it does change the culture a little bit. Um, and we're at that point now. I think we talked about that close to the 10 million range, or whatever. So I mean, we intend to keep growing. So part of that is um, developing and building some stronger systems. With those stronger systems, it does change a little bit on how the company does is viewed by its employees, but um, still always want to maintain that close connection with the employees. Jesse being our CI manager, uh, one of his big tasks is between different CI events and continuous improvement Kaizen events to keep the employees involved. We have the ability to have open forum where people can, um, if they see opportunities for change and improvement, those items would be added to our Kaizen list of things in a company that we want to improve for the benefit of people, benefit of the company. So the culture is really around valuing the people. It's helped us recruit in a very difficult time with the tight labor market. Um, it's not easy, but I think we do better than most because the name Precision Shapes attracts a lot of attention locally. So I think it's just caring about people.
One of our core values. Sorry, it was one of our core values is caring, and employees come, it's equal, but employees and customers our employees are our best asset, and we jumped on early with benefits and pay in trying to give them a living wage, and also um, really consider healthcare not a perk but a necessity that we help provide for our employees and their families, because we understand it's integral.
I've
We,
heard you say that for
yeah,
years before I was working here.
yeah,
Like,
always.
if Precision Shapes can, will always offer healthcare.
Yeah,
Boy, that one has
yeah.
been great in retrospect.
And we've always been, flexible with our employees, with their schedules, their needs, their that sort of thing. And we're now trying to, while growing and put in systems and processes in place, still make sure that our employees are heard and know that they are heard. So, and that's one of John's main reasons for being here, and his what's it called?
His
Value.
challenge.
His challenge.
We took John and threw him right into the fire, and he immediately started stoking the fire. Culture is yeah, culture can be a delicate thing, and John's been charged with diving into our fundamentals, is what he was describing before, and restructuring them, adding structure, changing them, setting them on a better trajectories, and to get an entire team of over 60 people to, sort of not just fall in line to that, but rather, enthusiastically help with it. It's a challenge, to say the least.
Yeah,
So,
'cause I think part of growing a company is it naturally tends to feel less personal. So the challenge is, as we grow the company, to keep it as personal as possible. I am fortunate enough to have some great cheerleaders around me, because I am the company introvert that will stay in my own little corner unless I'm pushed out. So um, it's good to have people in the company that are able to help share the enthusiasm that at least I have on the inside, um, to let people know that although we're growing and we're developing systems, that we still haven't changed the core values of how we feel and treat the employees.
Back in the late 90s when we started the path down AS 9100, single most biggest problem we had was, is changing the culture. I mean, we had machinists that stood in the same spot for 10 years and wouldn't show anybody what they were doing, and like throw tools at you if you went near it. Yeah, so, we had to pull them out and share the love and document the knowledge. Oh my God, that took 8 years. So at least to get a start on it, reasonable start. So, and I think now with our ups and downs and shrinkings and growings and shrinking and growings, we have a great blend of employee base. Half are veterans, half are not, bringing in knowledge, sharing old knowledge. I think that is the key, and that is the trick, is to, as John says, get everybody moving in the same direction and like pushing the cart. So, I'm really excited about it when I see finance and contracts, everybody talking and discussing, and you walk into the engineering group and everybody's talking and discussing. You go out to the shop and you see a couple people with heads over each jobs talking and sharing. That does my heart good. With the spindles turning, hopefully. But that's the culture that I see and I want. So, oh yeah,
40 years.
yeah, 40 years. I mean, some people started here 18, and they're we're talking about Medicare. We're sharing our Medicare knowledge. Yeah, it's a little fun. Yeah, yeah. And that's a good portion of the employees. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yep, right there. In fact, I kind of cheated. I was using these to answer some of your questions. Okay, we do this.
oh,
You can.
okay. Our core values are reputation, innovation, and caring. And we further define each of those as reputation, meaning dependable, honest, respectful, with integrity. Innovation as willing, flexible, creative, and with continuous improvement in mind. And caring for our employees and for our customers.
Pretty basic. Mm.
Mom and my aunt who own the shop, they came up with those core values, and they've been here as long as I've been here. So
And on, at the time, we had a consultant come in and we did all that stuff. They're like, oh, core values. They're like, yeah, yeah, whatever, whatever. But honestly, over the years, when it came down to a really difficult decision, whether it involved a supplier, a customer, an employee, the different options, always going back to your core values pretty much guide you to the right one, even if it was painful. So yeah, I take them seriously. Generically to the floor. I mean, we convey, and we have a regular. We try to have regular all hands meeting. It's been difficult over the last year and a half with 2 years with COVID and such, but we try to include our employees into the knowledge base of who our customers are, what programs they're in, their parts go on these, and what those programs are doing and how our customers are performing, and therefore, our scope of work and our future forecasts are based on our customers. We share our successes for sure, and we also share our concerns. Hey, raw materials going through the roof. You know, hiring. John was brilliant. We've gotten more people through the door recently. We're trying to grow a second shift, and we have a second shift now. We need to bring people in, and at the meeting we went with finder's fee, right? You know, within 3 days we had people walking through the door applying. So, so that sort of thing we do share with our employees. We give them numbers, comparative, how we're doing, as opposed to our best year last year. And these last couple of years have been a recovery year. So assuring them that we are going in the right direction and showing them our forecast. They can see our forecast. Our customers are telling us that they are bumping us up month after month over the next few years. So we've got a lot coming towards us. I don't know if it translates to numbers enough, but
I'd like to add something here. One thing that I've seen over the past few years is a vastly increased emphasis on metrics, and not just throwing some numbers together, but metrics that actually work for us, that tell us how we're doing over time, and that we have to address if they start going down. So we credit our current quality manager with really pushing that and enforcing it, and that has done wonders in telling us how, in more detail, how the company is doing, and we share those numbers with everybody. Yeah. I'll kick this off.
yeah.
So for me, the biggest challenge that I see is the pace of changes continuing to increase over time. And by changes, I mean both external changes to our industry, within our customers, um, and to expectations outside of us, the business, and within, just as a business evolves and grows like we want to and have been. A workforce will get weary of changes, especially coming out of the tumult of the past few pandemic years. So we have even factors that aren't even related to our business affecting our workforce in major ways. People want stability at the same time that a business must rapidly evolve. This is tough for everyone. An employer must see this and act on it. We're not just slapping changes out there and expecting immediate results. Rather, we're involving everybody up front, and we're asking them to help define the changes that we're making and telling them about it and telling them why we're doing it and letting them, communicating up, down, and across the company and learning how to do that better along the way. So we hope that this will strengthen us as a team over time. And a good recent example of this is our ProShop ERP implementation. So everything I just said about changes, implementing ProShop, and I'm not saying this just because you, Paul, are hosting us, and you run ProShop, and have brought this awesome ERP to us, but we are in the middle of the largest systematic change we have ever gone through at this company in 81 years. We are going from on our third ERP that we're currently on and only half engaged with, to a system that's going to drive every step of our business and demands that we enter data correctly and that we train everyone to a degree that we've never done before. And it's a cascading wave of changes that come from that. So we're very excited about it. All these changes, as we're communicating to everyone on the floor and to all of our managers and everyone, is for the good of the company and for the good of everyone here, so we can do more and accomplish more and all share in that success.
I've got one more thing to add to that. Absolutely. So to piggyback on the Pro Shop, I mean, what Pro Shop does is it's going to help us bring all our data into one place. Right now, I've tried to get a good number on how many different spreadsheets we're running the company with. I think it's somewhere around 50. And these different spreadsheets are basically owned, controlled, and operated by each department. So it's somewhat segmented. You know, the data is not as centralized as we would like it to be. So, I mean, the big challenge is internally would be, okay, everybody, we have a new ERP system. I know you've had decades of comfort level with your spreadsheets, but those spreadsheets will eventually, be sidelined and will be, operating through a centralized ERP system, ProShop. And now I've gone through some of these changes in previous companies, and I've always found that when you finally get a good ERP system running properly, it's letting go of the old and accepting the new, which it would be the ProShop, and moving forward with that. So I think the challenge has yet to be noticed in at Precision Shapes, but when we start, cutting the umbilical cord of spreadsheets, there's going to be some scary moments for people where they're just, okay, can I trust the new system? And we know it's going to work out well, but when you've survived off of spreadsheets, it's a real tough separation to walk away from.
Well, that's probably because at some of those meetings, some of those selection meetings, I think we just got a lot of the ugliness out of the way early.
Yeah. We'll prove that.
Hashed out our issues.
it is so essential that we can't not do it. And we've got to really step it up. We were slow in the 90s and 2000s, but at this point, we're getting some traction. Pro Shop being our first. Once we get that down, we've got to keep going and not stop. So, in other areas, for sure, or we will not be competitive with, 10 years down the road. So, it's critical. Okay, maybe I could speak for the last 2 years. The last year, maybe. Yeah, you asked for one sentence. People know me. I'm never just one sentence. Okay, we had a bet here whether we were going to go over like an hour or not, but don't be shy. I think is really don't be shy to try to say yes to get in there to have a voice and be it at all levels, up, down, and sideways. Have a clear mission and core values and rely on them because they will eventually provide clarity and guidance. I sound like I'm preaching, I know, but that is a basis for the business. And everybody's got to be treated right. You've got to have a great team around you, great customers, and and know it. I can't get much more technical than that. I'm not the technical person.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
add to that if you like.
Yeah.
Having good fundamentals, eventually, not having good fundamentals will catch up to you as business in some way. So, ownership, previous ownership, laid some great fundamentals, a lot of them. And lately, we've just been working on a few others, a few of the more technical ones. And, it's worth taking the time to set those right and then move forward, even if it takes years.
Embrace change.
Well, I mean, that was a one sentence thing, but caught me off guard. Uh, I mean, I think, you know, part of the success is always, you know, looking ahead. Where do you really want to go? Um, if you're only looking at the next day, the next week, or whatever, you're gonna lose focus. You gotta look far enough down the road that when you make a decision, is it going to be good for you later? So you don't make it the same investment in time and money twice.
Well, I had four bullets for this, and two of them Mom and John took, which were great. Mom said, care for your employees, remember your core values. Absolutely. Um, Especially these days, you're going to lose your best employees if you're not doing that.
Yeah, quickly.
John had my other favorite bullet, which was keep your eye on the long view, because that in classic business. We're a machine shop. We deal with multi-year contracts, luckily, and so we can't give up the long term for short term gains. That is very true here. Our reputation will start taking a hit immediately if we do that. So the other two bullets I had was be prepared for industry wide ups and downs. There's rhythms and there's contractions and expansions, and it's not even. So that was one of the most surprising things as I jumped over to aerospace. And the other is to protect yourself from that is to diversify.
I'd say don't be afraid of change and always change. Honestly, always be ready and don't be behind the people, but don't be stagnant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
Paul.
Michael.
Thank you.
All
You
right.
too.
You too,
Thanks.
Paul. Thanks.
Bye.